Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with another lesson going through the sequence of the end times. This one is amazing. It's fascinating that this is a time where Christ is teaching the golden rule, a tree and its fruit, and all these things. And then, people at that time are, viewing him as a teacher, and he is. But then he's also prophesying, and then we have the ability now to understand what he's getting at once, now that we know the sequence of the end times. And so all of this is coded language for the sequence, the end times as well. And so we'll see that it's amazing. The golden rule, I'll start Matthew 7:12. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Okay, verse 13. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. Okay, so God hates a majority of people on this earth, the God of the Bible. So don't get mad at me, okay? I didn't come up with this. That's what the Bible says here and everywhere. And then it's implied, obviously, with the mark of the beast. And so he causeth all. So it's arbitrary. It's like whatever time period is in, it's going to apply. We're living in those days now that it's very clear that we are at the end based on this narrative. And so God has always hated a majority of people on this earth. Okay. That doesn't mean that he loves me, but just know that that's what the Bible says. Okay. Don't get offended by that. Verse 14, for the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Many are called, but the few are chosen. This is in verse 14. That's for God's elect. Okay, so now right away, first reference to God's elect. Check. Verse 15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit. But the diseased tree bears bad fruit. Verse 18, a healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. That's verse 18, 666. He's getting at there's two manners of people that are being sifted out during this time. And there's only two. There's not three or four. Maybe I took part one of the 3-part series of the Mark of the Beast or anything like that. There's two manners of people, and Christ is reminding us this here. If we don't, we shouldn't need to know this at this point. But it's very, very obvious from what we see in the world and what the Bible states everywhere. God has a left and a right-hand side, and that's it. And his left-hand side worship the beast. They are this bad fruit, okay? They only trust what they see, and then prolonging their life and physical things. And then they have a right-hand side which worships Christ, okay, and follows him. That's it. And they want to go wherever he is. Verse 19, every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. That's actual fire. Thus you will, and that's in verse 19, Matthew 7:19, 26:26. That's in the last days. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits, okay? Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. These are people that are left behind. They're like, wait a minute. I was prophesying for years. I was on the streets every week, in season, not as yada. God doesn't care. Okay. Like it says here, did we not prophesy in your name? And now people come and say, you got to prophesy in the name of Yahuwah, Yeshua, Yahushai, all that kind of madness. And then some of them even were casting out demons in his name. And then they did many mighty works in your name. So they're boasting. They're like, hey, don't these things mean that we're buddies and all that kind of stuff? He's like, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Okay. So just know that all those people are going to get angry once they're left behind. And then they start realizing, oh, they're not the two witnesses, or Christ is not white, or all the different things that people believe that are stupid. And so who cares? Okay. Those people are retarded, and then they don't trust what the Bible says. And it's very, very clear where God's heart and mind is. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Again, I want people to know a lot of the Bible is literal when Christ is talking about this. And he's literally going to return. All eyes will see him. But everyone then who hears these words of mine is a time that's referencing the gospel being preached in the last days during the time of the two witnesses. Okay, so this is a reference to God preaching through these UFOs, in the sky. And so just know that, this is again a reference to the gospel being preached worldwide. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. This is again God's right-hand side, the mixed multitude that's being sifted during that time. Verse 26, 2:66, and everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. That's in verse 2:14. Okay, this is when Christ returns with his elect and exercises this judgment on all the faithless on earth, okay? Because the mixed multitude have been sifted out at that point, okay? And so now we should get a reference to the kingdom of heaven, and then we get that. Verse 28, and when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. And so now, this is now when Christ has authority, over the entire earth. And so just know that that's coded language. And we get even further references to the kingdom of heaven. If you keep reading on in verse Matthew 8:5, when he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word of my servant will be healed. Okay. Just know that, I too am a man under authority with soldiers under me. Okay. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this and do that. Okay. So just know that. Christ is impressed by this person's faith. Verse 10, when Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, truly, I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, so right away we have a reference to soldiers under me, okay? And that's referring to Christ, again, returning with his elect prior to the kingdom of heaven being established. And his angels. Here in verse 11, I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into outer darkness. And so this is in the final cleanup of the earth, where everybody who's on God's left-hand side is going to be destroyed, who have the mark of the beast. And like it says here, in that place where they will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, that's here on earth. Okay, spirits don't have teeth. They don't have to brush every day or anything like that, flossing and all that. That's absolutely ridiculous. And to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. So again, we have the sequence following perfectly. We have a time referencing God's elect. The gates, which is another reference to the elect themselves, the gates to the city, to the kingdom. And then we have a time of two manners of people being delineated. And then we have a time of destruction, soldiers under me, literally under Christ, and then the enemies under them, destroying them prior to the kingdom of heaven being established on earth where Christ has the authority. So again, Matthew 7 and 8 follow the sequence of the end times perfectly. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.